Been chasing numbers around this morning. So first one on the agenda here is going to be the Kansas Bureau of Investigation deliberation on that energy agency budget. So I know there's a lot of items on there. Is there any discussion about any of them? Senator Claves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question. I might have missed this during the process. When we were talking about the Kansas Bureau of Investigation's Pittsburgh facility, was that bonded, or were they asking for a one-time appropriation?
I think it's cash, wasn't it? Yeah.
I saw the bonding rates, which is what was confusing to me, whether or not that was a bonding ask. Could we ask Merle?
Mr. Chairman, I can help clarify. The agency has indicated a total cost of $40 million. So if the legislature wanted to provide that $40 million, that would be the cost of construction, or they've proposed an alternative would be to bond that for 20-year bonds for a total of $61.5 million at an interest rate, I believe, of like 4.3%.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, if it's appropriate at this time, then I would make a motion to bond the facility for the Pittsburgh proposal that the Kansas Bureau of Investigation has to authorize that in FY25.
Okay, we have a motion and we got a second. Is there any discussion? Senator Pittman.
Thank you. I appreciate that consistency there. When we look at this facility, I think it's a fantastic vision of synergies between law enforcement agencies. It seems like it's a good plan. I still have a lot of questions about it. I think that the agency still has architectural drawings that they need to get together to understand what they're putting together. I'm a little tentative in terms of suggesting we build a building out there without having the complete plan put together. I think that we should get more information on this and see how it's going to work with and make sure that we have those agencies buying into the process. We don't want to build a building and then have it not used in the way they want it used. So I've got some tentative, I think it's a great plan, but I think that it needs more solidity. And so I'm a little tentative about suggesting we go forward with it until we get a little bit more information over the next month or two. So I don't think we should suggest it as part of this budget. I think we should put this off to omnibus and understand what the whole plan is and get our full support behind it.
Senator Claves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the process is the same either way. If we put it in, it goes all the way through Ways and Means, goes to omnibus. The consideration is still there throughout. The difference is that if you pull it out, then it has to be brought up during that process, and it's always better to have an item sitting there in front of us as we're going through this process, as opposed to it having to be brought up by a legislator. We have a lot of things that get missed in these budgets, and I don't want to see this thing get missed. So I would prefer that we put it in today, have this go through that process of vetting. It'll be before Ways and Means. They will have the drawings available for us so that we can see this as we go through the process. If anyone has any hesitancy at that time or doesn't like what they're seeing, we can pull back at any point in time. But I would prefer that we put this in now so that it's being a part of all of our runs and everything that we're doing as far as planning for the next few fiscal years. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Pittman.
I'm okay with that. I think that's a good idea. We also, as part of that process, as we go through the up to omnibus, want to understand, is this increasing any kind of FTEs in that particular facility? What kind of technology are we going to invest to make that the best facility it can be for the purposes that they want? And then for the long-term goals of that facility, understand, you know, what's the plan there versus some of the other facilities out there as we go into diversifying across the state these different facilities in support of the KVI's mission. So I just think it's important that this fit into something like that with a long-term projection of future investments and costs that'll help keep the security of our citizens using the KVI forces in the best way they can and make sure that we have a consistent strategic plan as we move forward with that.
And perhaps, Senator, then I could just amend my motion to include that we have some language in the subcommittee report that includes that Ways and Means consider those items as you've listed. I'm sure we could just rerun the tape to have that written down, and that we, as we go through that process, that those things are satisfied. I think it is important for the KBI to present on this once the entirety of it's fleshed out, and they have some of those things. But as our budgets and our legislative year kind of is pretty quick, it's something that probably needs to happen in tandem with our process. So I'm definitely in favor of getting those questions answered and would be amenable to having those added to the subcommittee report, and Ways and Means consider those as well. Since we're all on it, we're all going to be tracking this throughout. If that's good with the second.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got a motion, got a second, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, could I just clarify really quick? So that motion was to add the 3.1 million for the initial debt service and authorize the 20-year bonding, with some language in the subcommittee report about the agency providing information on goals and technology capabilities and some other items. Is that pretty clearly grasped?
That is correct. It is the 3.1 million, then the bonding authority, the 3.1 million being for the initial payment. And then the items, as Senator Pittman had lined out, I believe he had some interest in several items that I think all of us have an interest in and that the KBI will be able to provide. And if we could just go back to the video to line those out for the subcommittee report.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, do we have anything else under 2020, Senator Pittman?
Are we on 2025?
Do what?
Are we on a specific year? Or can we just talk about the whole thing?
I think there was enough items on 2024. Is there anything under there? The governor concurred, but there was like 8 items there. I didn't know if there's anything we wanted to. Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also just ask for a subcommittee report line item on salaries and the pay plan, and that should there be any adjustments to the Kansas Highway Patrol pay plan, that those also be considered in Ways and Means for the Kansas Bureau of Investigation. We're doing these in the other order, so I'd just like that to be noted, and then when we go to the KHB, we can talk about theirs.
Okay, does that kind of relate to number 4 on page 11 or not?
It would be additive.
It'd be additive, okay. I have a motion. Have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. So when you look on page 6 and 7, is there anything in those items, senators, that we need to, the new central dispatch facility, at $10 million or $7 million for the training academy improvements? I'm sorry, I'm the wrong one. Okay. Okay, we'll move to FY 2025. Senator Pittman.
On 2025, there's an admirable fight against fentanyl, which we are doing in this 2025 budget. It's we've got a partial improvement by the governor, and I just want to express my support of the initiative. I will tell the committee this, that I'm a little nervous about adding a whole ton of FTEs in one particular segment. I think that our state also deserves more FTEs in cyber security across the state, as well as some of the white collar crime and some of the other task force that the KBI goes into. So I'm a little hesitant to support the full tranche into the fentanyl, because it's a big ask to have that many FTEs go into one particular aspect. So I'm a little hesitant about adding all those FTEs at this time. It's an ask we'd have to go on top of the governor's recommendation for this, so I just wanted to put that out there.
Which page you on, Senator Pittman? 16. 16. He's on page 16.
Sorry, on page 15, that's number 3, it's fight against fentanyl. There's a description of everything that goes down through there about the number of FTEs that are being recommended. The governor and done a partial adoption of that. And I want to support this initiative. I just want to make sure that we're also, if we're adding FTEs, make sure we're looking across the entire agency and looking at our entire needs. And it's just a lot in terms of one particular initiative. I think it's 14 total, isn't it? Is that right?
Correct. For 2025, the net gain when considering the agency's request and the governor's recommendation is at 14 FTE positions.
New individuals fighting one fight. So a little hesitant on that one. I don't know what the committee wants to do with that.
Senator Clays.
Yeah, and during the process, I think we heard that, the fight against fentanyl is the fight against a lot of things that are downstream of fentanyl. So it's while the focus is on the fentanyl, it's a lot of things that get caught up in that and that require this additional funding and support. So I think this is broader than just fentanyl that they're after, but it is the driving force behind the ask. And it looks like the governor, if I'm not mistaken, the governor partially recommended this. Is that what we got on here?
That's correct. Regarding the fight against fentanyl, the governor did partially recommend. If you look on page 13, item 12, the governor recommended 3.8 million SGF and 9 FTE positions. That's 3.1 million below what the agency requested and 21 FTE positions below.
Senator Pittman.
I mean, I would rather, if we're going to go above the governor's recommendation, put money into the Child Protection Initiative myself. I think that, for me personally, that's a much more, it's more focused. It's a smaller ask on top of what they've already got. Adding 14 new positions all in 1 year, when we ramp that up, but if the committee wants to go forward with the full 14 on top of what the governor has, I can understand that too.
Yeah, Child Protection Initiative, the agency asked for 1.8 million and 11 FTE positions. The governor recommended 711,000 and 5 FTE positions.
Senator Clays.
If we're ready for a motion, I just make a motion at the KBI's request, that the subcommittee make the recommendation of the KBI's request.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, can I just clarify, that was just for the Child Protection Initiative? We talked about both fentanyl.
No, that was for the entirety of the KBI's budget.
Okay, so restore any deletions that the governor made.
Correct.
Okay, we're ready for the Highway Patrol deliberation on agency budget. I was on the wrong packet a while ago. That 10 million is number 3 on page 7 of there, page 6. So,
Mr. Chairman, if you're entertaining motions, I would make a couple of subcommittee recommendations at this time.
okay.
First, just dealing with the training center modifications and the central dispatch moving to the new location, that the Senate Ways and Means this subcommittee asked for Senate Ways and Means to receive information from the Kansas Highway Patrol concerning that site. The site where they want to place that item would roughly encircle a KDOT facility with KHP items, including the road course, the evidence handling facility. There's a Salina Police Department firing range, and then they're placing this, and in the center of that is a KDOT facility. And I think as we're sort of looking to the future and what the facility needs are, I'd like a more comprehensive approach to this than just simply encircling KDOT's facility in South Salina with buildings. One thing that they could do, and I'm just spitballing here, but there is land to the north of it where we could move the KDOT facility and create more of a campus for our friends at the Kansas Highway Patrol rather than just have them sort of grab state land as it becomes available. And I'd like to hear more from the Kansas Highway Patrol on how they would go about doing that. The road course is inadequate for the training needs for their partners and for the Kansas Highway Patrol. So I would like to see what it would look like if we were to have them look at expanding that road course. Also, with the police department having an indoor firing range and the Highway Patrol having potentially access to that, what it would look like if we went into a partnership with the city. And in that area, we could accomplish multiple things at the same time with the amount of taxpayer money that we're spending here. So I would just ask that we put in the subcommittee report that Senate Ways and Means receive information from the Kansas Highway Patrol regarding what a more comprehensive plan for the facilities in South Salina would look like if they had, if they didn't have the KDOT facility in that spot and we moved that, or if we moved some of the Kansas Highway Patrol items to the parcel north of the area that they're considering for that central dispatch facility. So we would still pass the funding through today. I wouldn't stop that, but would just ask for more information so we can make a more informed decision on that rather than just simply placing a facility that, I think if you guys saw this, you'd probably agree that encircling a KDOT facility with KHP facilities is kind of an oddity. And it doesn't really have some forward thinking about what facility needs might be in the future if we're placing things sort of within a walking distance of each other.
Any questions, comments?
So that's a motion.
Got a motion and a second by Senator Pittman. Discussion. When would they provide this information to us then?
I think they've already started working on it. I did ask several questions in joint state building construction that they provided answers for that would be supplemental to this. So they would just expand on what I've already asked in that committee to be provided. and then distributed to the rest of the committee members. Since this is the second level sort of for capital improvements, we have heard this already in joint state building construction, so it would be an extension of the questioning that occurred there. And they're aware of it. It's not something new they're just hearing today.
So we present this to full committee then?
We would present to the full committee that there might be an edit to how we approach this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Had a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Is there something else you had?
I've got just two more things. So the next one would be a motion regarding the final aircraft in the aircraft plan. It looks like a new Cessna fully equipped would be $7.8 million. We would do a transfer out of the state highway fund for this item, so I would make a motion to transfer $7.8 million from the state highway fund to the aircraft fund for the purchase and equipping of a Cessna Caravan. This would be identical to what we did last time with the Cessna Caravan and would complete the fleet.
That's a motion.
That's a motion.
Got a second? Any discussion? Senator Pittman.
So we're talking about taking funds out of the highway fund to do what we did last time in terms of buying a new plane or outfitting a new plane with a flare and that kind of thing?
Both, Senator. It's to purchase a new Cessna Caravan and then purchase the equipment to outfit that Cessna Caravan. You may recall many years ago when they began the fleet replacement plan that we talked about, you know, the one time and how expensive that was, and we sort of moved it across several years, and this would just be the final aircraft in that plan. So we did the helicopters, we took care of those. We required the sale of their older 172s, 206s, I forget the numbering we had on 19, maybe it was 190 something. Anyway, those smaller aircraft, and we were replacing those with the Caravans. So this would be the last one in that plan.
Senator Pittman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No issue with it, except we haven't heard anything from the agency that they want this.
We have. So the agency's plan was this level of replacement. They just haven't asked for it in the order in which we've been delivering it.
Sure, so the agency, in other words, they didn't ask for it this year to complete the plan that was put in place a couple of years ago. Like it's not.
We can ask Merle if, did the agency request and the governor decline? I don't know that this year.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Clays, there was no aircraft requested purchase. There was no in the agency's request, nor in the governor's recommendation.
Got it. So yes, we would be completing the plan as it was presented multiple years ago. That is not in the agency or the governor's recommendation, but it has been asked for in the past. So I would say, you know, whether or not it's asked for this year by the agency or not, it's superfluous.
Senator Pittman.
So, is this on top of all of our current aircraft, or is it in a replacement of one of our older ones? I'm still a little confused on that.
So we're not requiring a sale of another aircraft for this particular one, but we did require the sale of the 1978 aircraft previously. So I believe this one would be additive if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know that we're having agencies speak at this time, but it is my understanding that they are still keeping the two that are sort of in that middle spot of the replacement cycle. So we would have more aircraft than we have had in the past.
Senator Pittman.
So, are we going to bond this plane?
I'm sorry, we're bonding? No, we're going to send it through the state highway fund. You won't have to worry about that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Senator Billinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So how many total planes would this be then? It's 2 helicopters we just replaced, and then would this give us service in another area or what?
So we got the governor a jet. We got 2 helicopters. we have 2 smaller planes, and this would give us 2 caravans, which would be the 2 larger planes. This would be our second caravan, right? Correct. Yeah. So this would be our second caravan.
Thank you.
Senator Pittman?
I'm wondering, could they make the motion, would they be open to us getting a review from the Highway Patrol of the fleet before we, I mean, as part of the subcommittee report, just kind of like we did last time? So the whole committee understands the status of the fleet.
I'm happy to amend the motion to include that, but I do want to put the money in at this time too in my motion.
Understood. Thank you.
Yes, Merle, if you would add that the Ways and Means Committee receive information from the Highway Patrol regarding the current fleet. In fact, maybe it'd be helpful just to have all state aircraft reported to, in addition to the KHP's aircraft. I wouldn't mind having that information too.
And we should probably send it over to the House if they wanted to, the Appropriations Committee.
That's a good idea.
So that it's not coming out of the blue.
They're aware of it. This isn't something that hasn't been discussed for 8 years.
Senator Glaze, a question I might have on that is, in that performance-based budgeting, it was showed, I think, 75% usage with what we had so far. So I'm sitting here saying, the governor didn't recommend it, the agency didn't ask for it. We got 75% usage, and we're worrying about being able to put a new place to put airplanes in now with the air hangar. So that's just my thoughts I wanted to throw into the process.
Sure, and we don't determine when people are committing crimes or whatnot, but we do have an issue of coverage. So the issue here is having aircraft available and coverage in all parts of the state as opposed to just 2 parts of the state. So I am bringing this aircraft to you today because I would like the other areas of the state to have the same coverage that 2 parts of the state consistently have. And I think you know which 2 I'm talking about.
Is there any other discussion? We have a motion on the floor, and we have a second.
Merle wants clarification.
Okay, we need clarification on the motion.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is what I've kind of noted is to transfer $7.8 million from the state highway fund to the aircraft fund to purchase and equip a Cessna Caravan. Also, the subcommittee report would include language requesting KHP to provide some information to the Senate Ways and Means Committee regarding the status of their fleet.
Yes, the current fleet. And then if staff would just provide us with information regarding the entire state aircraft fleet outside of the KHP as well. Yeah, and the KHP portion, we can send that to appropriations as well. I want to know if Wildlife and Parks still has that plane.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
One last one.
Okay. Senator Glaze?
While we're here, Mr. Chairman, Merle has a handout for you, and I want to just talk briefly about the salary increases for the Kansas Highway Patrol and the KBI. We go through this process as well. When the governor has a 5% statewide pay increase, it hits those 2 agencies differently because they have a pay progression plan, a salary progression plan. That has to be impacted. So typically what happens is the governor will appropriate that amount of money that would have been a 5% increase to these agencies, and then it is somewhat left to the agency's discretion on how to distribute that. So I want to talk briefly today about the Kansas Highway Patrol and what some of the competitive issues are that they are facing. There is a issue here where the top out salaries, if you look at the paperwork here with the graph that's available to you, while we are very competitive on starting salary, over time in the Kansas Highway Patrol, you would see your salary top out working there longer, and then you would be paid quite a bit less than if you were to go work for one of the local police departments. So it's not necessarily a matter of increasing starting pay, which I think we're very competitive on at this time. It is more an issue of how that salary progresses over time and the competitive nature of a career at the Kansas Highway Patrol, and consequently, because they're similar, the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, which is why I added that item to the subcommittee report. So if we were to do something today, if you look at the single sheet of paper, you can see that a 5% increase would equate to about 2.3 million, and a 10% would be about 4.6 million to the agency out of the state highway fund. And that is something that we could affect today by suggesting to the, I would just put in a subcommittee report item that Ways and, so this will be the motion, subcommittee report item that the Committee on Ways and Means consider proviso language affecting the top-out salaries at the Kansas Highway Patrol, and because of the previous subcommittee action on the KBI, that we do so for the KBI as well. So when we're doing this, we're solving a problem at the same time increasing salaries with the governor's recommendation of the pay increase for the Kansas Highway Patrol and the KBI.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Ready for discussion. Senator Pittman.
Question, I think it sounded like during the deliberation that there's negotiations going on with troopers and the trooper organization, and they were going to come back with some salary suggestions. I don't know if this is in line with what they're talking about. There were some different things on the top-out salary and the number of years it took to get there.
Yes.
I don't know if this is the thing that they're negotiating or if this is kind of out of the blue.
Correct. So this came from the Kansas State Troopers Association. So if you're asking where it came from, that's where it came from.
That's helpful.
And yes, I think what we're asking for is just the notation here so that Ways and Means is dealing with this in such a way that we are giving our recommendation at this time that there be further discussion about how this top-out salary works and how it is impacting retention over at the Kansas Highway Patrol and consequently at the Kansas Bureau of Investigation.
Is there any way to request that these graphs start including some smaller communities like Salina and Leavenworth?
That would be helpful. Yes, I'm sure we can ask that.
They look a little cherry-picked, not that I'm denying that they're there, but it does look a little bit slanted, so it's nice to get a better projection. It sounds like a good recommendation, though, so.
Yeah, I think if you look at the top-out salaries in that second one, you can really see where the problem lies. It's the ability to sell a recruit on the career timeline, and if they're seeing something like this, I think I'd probably take a small pay decrease at the outset in order to have a long career at a law enforcement agency that was going to pay me significantly more in the out years. And I think most of us would. So that's the decision-making that's happening for a Kansas Highway Patrol trooper, and we want to make sure that we're putting them in a competitive position, not where they're necessarily poaching, but when people are making a decision, it's not so outsized in its obviousness to go somewhere else.
Any other questions? How many years are we talking on the top-out salaries, Senator Clays?
Oh, goodness, it's in here somewhere. And maybe that's a question that we can ask to be brought to Ways and Means, because I think the issue is that it takes longer, so the arc, and that's probably what we want to see. We want to see the arc of how long it takes to get there for each one, because I believe the issue is that the Kansas City and the Overland Parks, you're topping out faster, or you're topping out faster. At the KHP, it's taking you longer to get to your top-out salary, and it's lower. So it's like a double whammy on both. So I think we could ask for that information to be provided. It's kind of on that third graph, I think, that shows you, like the Kansas Highway Patrol takes 21 years to top out. Kansas City's 19 years, Overland Park's 15. So in Overland Park, you would hit $97,000 a year in 15 years. In the Kansas Highway Patrol, it would take you 21 years to hit 87. So you'd be paid less, and it would take you 6 more years to get there. that gives you a pretty good idea of how that competitive advantage is working. But I think Senator Pittman makes a point that maybe some more data points of comparison would be helpful across the state, since the KHP is a statewide agency.
We need clarification on the motion. You got that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure I've written this down. The motion was to have Senate Ways and Means consider proviso language affecting the top-out salary and the time period for which it's implemented for KHP sworn officers, and was to request some additional comparisons with other
Communities.
other entities or other communities. Is that fairly close?
And it is, I think it's referred to as a rank and pay plan. There might be some other words we use to refer to it, but yes, it would be in reference to the Kansas Highway Patrol's rank and pay plan.
But this
Career progression plan?
I think
Maybe that's what we call it.
Yeah.
Is that right? People are shaking their head, yes. Fantastic. I hit the right words. So let's put that in there.
considering adjustments to the career progression plan
Correct.
concerning top out salary. But at this point, there's no monetary amount associated with this. It is just proviso language.
Right. So I believe the governor already put in her 5% that she would add 5% here as a lump sum. Is that not correct, like she's done in the past?
The governor's 5% does exclude those that are in career progression plans.
Oh, okay. Well, then I would add 10% at this time, so that would be the 4.6 million to the Kansas Highway Patrol budget, and let's just have that as our placeholder for the subcommittee report. If that's good with the second, to make that part of the motion.
Okay, we have a motion, second by Senator Billinger. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Senator Clays, you got anything else?
I can't imagine.
Oh. Okay, do we need a motion on the whole thing? Yeah. So I'd entertain a motion on that at this point.
Are the boots included in the governor's recommendation? Are the boots included in the governor's recommendation? Boots?
Correct. The governor recommended $125,000 for the boot allowance, which was part of the memorandum of understanding negotiated with the Troopers Association.
I'd entertain a motion.
So let's do a motion that, including the items already voted upon, we pass out the governor's recommendation for the Kansas Highway Patrol,
For 24, 25.
24 and 25.
Got a second? Got a second? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. That concludes our meeting, so we are adjourned. Thank you.